What's up, everybody? It's Matt and Coach from the FF Mediators, and we are back for episode 2 today. And today we are going to cover some Dynasty trades, and we're also going to go through our Mediator code, which is our tips and tricks for how we play Dynasty Fantasy Football. And we're going to kind of walk you through our thought process on how we manage our team and kind of what we look for in trades and everything like that. So stay tuned for the end. And we'll go ahead and get started today with a quick review of kind of what's happened in the last 2 days of the NFL because the season is back, Coach.
Man, let's talk about the Chiefs and the Ravens first. I know Matt's a big Mark Andrews guy. He loves him some Mark Andrews, but Isaiah Likely's getting a lot of attention right now especially in the dynasty world, considering he's 24 years old. He had a heck of a game, 9 catches, over 100 yards, stole a lot of the Mark Andrews thunder. How worried are you about Andrews, Matt?
I'm not too worried. We spent a lot of time off air discussing this. I think Andrews is going to be fine. He's in an okay position. Likely's numbers, yes, they were great. And if you were starting him, props to you, man. Like, that's a deep dive there. Um, Andrews hurt, but he did have one play called back, so it would have been a little bit of a better day. But at the end of the day, they were all over him. Like, Andy Holloway had a great tweet on this where he kind of broke down all the different plays and every single route that Andrews ran. And he was just covered the entire time. He wasn't open. They were getting killed in the pass rush. So I'm not too worried. I think Andrews is going to be fine. More, we should be monitoring how much will likely be involved in the future. Um, but it certainly was a great first game to kick off the season. The Chiefs pull off the win 27-20. Lamar missed the guy at the very end that could have been an easy touchdown, right? Easy
Oh
touchdown.
yeah. That has to have Ravens fans a little concerned, but they were playing the Chiefs. I mean, they
Yeah.
are the Chiefs. I think my thought with likely is, is there a world where he affects Andrews enough where Andrews goes from being a top 3 to 5 tight end down to being 10, 11, 12, somewhere in there? Obviously Andrews is still good. Andrews still gonna get a lot of love from Lamar, but is likely his come up going to be something that's going to be concerning for Andrews fans, as in you're not going to quite get the production that you were hoping to get. Obviously, I do think he'll still produce, but I'm a little concerned that it's going to drop off a little bit because likely did get 12 targets. It's not like they went to a receiver. I mean, Zay Flowers had a decent night, obviously. Um, but
Do you think
yeah, I don't know, man.
is that a product of them not being able to push the ball down the field? I mean, it felt like bubbles and screens and everything out to the sides, just no depth at all. And Andrews didn't really get the opportunity to go downfield, and that's kind of where he thrives too.
Yeah, and Flowers had 6 catches, but he only had 37 yards. I mean, there's not a whole lot of juice there. And likely took advantage of his matchups.
He
People
did.
have been concerned about likely stealing a little bit of Andrews thunder over the last 2 years, and it hasn't really happened. You sort of saw the likely breakout the other night, and I'm just, it's something to monitor for sure.
I mean, he's athletic, right? I mean, that was a big time play going down the sideline, so there's no denying that.
Totally, totally,
So,
yeah, athletic
w-
and young.
well, let's switch sides here and let's talk about Xavier Worthy. That
Mm.
first little, what would you call that? Like an orbit sweep.
Oh yeah, yeah. God, dude is fast, man. Dude is fast. Like I said this months ago when we were talking. The Chiefs went and got him. Like it's not like that he just fell in their lap. They traded up to go draft Xavier Worthy, and when you do that, Andy Reid's going to get him the ball. Like it's very Jaden Reed like, who I'm sure we'll talk about here in a minute, but
Yeah, very
similar.
true.
They're going to find a way to get this guy the ball.
And it's funny. After that first touchdown, I put out a tweet that said, there's now a trade embargo on Worthy.
Yeah,
And when that second touchdown hit, I was like, well, now it's really in effect because even if you're a little bit skeptical, there's no denying that being that big of an explosive player in the Chiefs offense is huge for fantasy. And
yeah, oh,
is that
yeah. And
something
you
you're,
talk about
yeah,
that makes
is that
the
something you
Chiefs
want to move right
scary.
now? I don't want to move
Huh?
that right now. I want to hold.
Totally, and that makes the Chiefs' offense even more scary. Now, if they haven't had an explosive guy like that since Tyreek left, and man, that's gonna be scary to watch for sure.
Yeah, that's a big one. And there's some people I've read on Twitter is do you sell high because it was just you know a few plays that got him all the points, but I don't think I'm doing it. I'm not looking to move him for you know market value. If someone's gonna go over the top and overpay me, then yeah, I might do something like that. But for right now, I'm holding him. And another player to think about is Rasheed Rice right here. He had a really solid game. Like he's gonna be good.
Yeah, he proved he's the guy. He's the one in Kansas City, and they're gonna go out of their way to throw him the football. Um, but yeah, Worthy, I'm not moving him. Of course, for me, I'm always willing to trade for the right price, or at least think about it. But I'm not rushing out there to send a bunch of offers out trying to move Worthy if I've got him. There's no way. I'm holding this guy and hoping. We're playing the long game with him. I mean, he's young, he's fast. I'm holding him for possibly years. I want to watch the next 6 weeks and see what happens,
Oh
before I
yeah,
do anything there.
it's exciting. So, well, let's pivot to last night's game. So last night we had the Packers and the Eagles play. Eagles take home the win in the first game in Brazil, 34-29. We had lots of big fantasy implications last night. Let's start with the elephant in the room, Jordan Love. Jordan Love got hurt last night, does not look good right now. No real confirmation on what it might be, a lot of speculation on the ACL, possibly a high ankle sprain. Just really hurts to see week one, right, coach?
Oh yeah, a lot of people in Green Bay holding their breath for sure on the Jordan Love thing, or as are a lot of Jordan Love fantasy football owners. Yeah, it's the turf was not good last night. Like that's something that's going to be talked about. The playing conditions were not the best, and then, was it worth going down there and playing a football game if the field conditions were not going to be right, and one of your premier up and coming superstars ends up having a major injury? So that's something that's going to be highly talked about over the next few days.
Oh yeah, it's going to be a big discussion, especially for the international push with the game right now. But
Right.
let's move on to positive news that we can actually talk about. Jordan, oh excuse me, Jaden Reed.
Yes, get that name right. This is the guy. We said by Jaden Reed. I had him in our division picks as the breakout player of the year in the NFC
Mhm.
North, and this guy he's the dude. He's the war daddy. We've been saying it.
He's the war daddy.
He's the one in Green Bay. And if Jordan Love is hurt, then I still think it might help him even more because they're going to find even more ways to hand him the ball. You saw that last night. They manufactured a touch for him that resulted in a touchdown. He scored 2 touchdowns and really scored. He had 3. One was called back. I mean, the dude is explosive. He is the most explosive player in Green Bay, and he's going to be the one. I mean, he's
Yeah,
scored
he's a
like 9
playmaker.
touchdowns in the last 9 games or something crazy like that. Like, yeah, he can play.
That's a fantasy player I want on my team. We've talked about it, like you said, for a long time. How we've been buying Jaden Reed everywhere we can, every single spot we
Mhm.
can get him. He just is a playmaker. He's a dog. He goes out there and he gets it done.
Yeah, if you didn't buy him before now, that price just went through the roof last night. So,
You're not wrong there. You're probably not getting him today.
yeah.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about the Eagles side. Saquon Barkley just feasted.
Yeah, like I thought he might play good. I thought this guy's going to be a good player in Philadelphia. I didn't see that coming. He
Yeah,
was explosive, man. I saw somewhere a tweet somewhere. It's like it looked like he had a jetpack on last night, man. He was flying.
he was.
Yeah, it was impressive for sure.
So, well, it's going to be fun to watch that offense continue to grow. Let's just talk just briefly about Jalen Hurts. What did you make of his performance? I was telling you that last night we were talking a little bit, and we were talking to some of our other friends that I've got a little bit of concerns with the Hurts decision making. We've kind of discussed that in the past. And then we
Hmm.
get into last night, and there were several times he should have had another pick. So, no doubt he's a fantasy god. I mean, on a team we co-manage. He's still got us what 25 points or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was like 21, 22 in a game where he just didn't play. He played okay,
Hmm.
but I mean, there were some moments there. You're like, what in the world? Where is he throwing the football? But Saquon Barkley really, really paid big dividends for the Eagles, and hopefully Hurts will improve moving forward.
I think he will.
It's crazy though in a game where he just plays. His fantasy numbers are still in the 20s. You know,
Yeah.
like this is a guy you want on your team for years to come, as long as he can keep making good decisions and remains the quarterback, obviously.
All right. Well, let's get into some trade review and start breaking these down. So we'll give you our thoughts. Appreciate everyone for submitting these trades. It's been really great to interact with the community. We also have a few trades that we were a part of in this too. So we'll break those down too, kind of give you some context on those. But I'm going to hit you with the first trade here, Coach, and it is Drake London for Jalen Warren and Addison. What are
Yeah,
your initial thoughts?
I've been a Drake London believer since he was drafted, leading up to the draft, and I just think his value is so much higher than the other two guys. I think Addison is somewhat capped, especially now with who knows the quarterback situation moving forward. You still will be looking 2 years down the road at McCarthy coming back. How will he play? Which will basically be his rookie year 2 years from now. You got Justin Jefferson there. Warren in, I guess, a timeshare running back by committee situation in Pittsburgh. I mean, if Najee falters, Warren becomes more valuable, I guess. But to me, it's Drake London. He's the one in Atlanta. That's the guy.
Yeah, this is an easy Drake London for me.
Yeah, yeah,
Addison's capped. You know, what's Warren? I don't know. Like you said, it's a timeshare. Maybe he's something. Maybe it's nothing. I don't know. But I do know this that I think London's the best player. And if I'm tearing down from London, this isn't what I want. If I'm
yeah. I agree.
rebuilding, this is lost value. If I'm a contending team, then what am I doing? So I don't really see a world where this trade helps you. I think it hurts you. And maybe we're wrong. Maybe Addison's going to be way better than we think he is. But right now, I don't see that happening.
No, and I just think Kirk Cousins and the quarterback situation getting him better in Atlanta is just only going to help Drake London.
Completely agree. All right, let's move on to the next one then. Here we have another Addison trade and another Drake London trade. So we've got Addison, a 26 first, another 26 first for Drake London and Williams here. What are your thoughts?
Listen, for me, I want the Drake London Jameson Williams side of this. Um, I mean, you're getting good value back. I'm just not kicking the can to 2026. That's just me. Like, give me 20. If those were 2025s, totally different thing for me. But 2026, there's a lot can happen between now and then. I don't. I'm Drake London here.
I'm with you as well. I love getting a first, and I'm a big
Yeah,
fan of tearing down or tearing up, however I can do it. But 26 is just that's not where I want to kick it. I'm not for two. If it
yeah.
was a 25 and a 26, maybe like you can start
Hmm.
talking about what's my team doing, how am I, competing, am I rebuilding, retooling. But for this, I mean, we don't have the context behind it. I think I'm taking the London side.
And 26, you're gonna love that trade.
That's true. 26, you're going to think that's the best thing you've ever done. So, well, let's move on to
Yeah.
the next one here. And we've got another Drake London. Drake London in a 26 seconds for Jackson Smith and Jigba in a 25 first. Hmm.
It's been interesting all the Drake London stuff. Like everybody's kind of unsure about Drake London a little bit. It seems there you got a lot of people that want him, a lot of people that want to get rid of him. There's just a whole lot there. I don't know. I think he's going to be really good.
I think he's going to be good too. And JSN is someone we've kind of gone back and forth a lot on.
Hmm.
Do we think he's good? I think I like him more than you do. Um, I do have concerns for how much value he can have in this offense. And, if DK plays well and if Tyler Lockett plays like I think Tyler Lockett will because he's a good NFL player, the role is just not the best situation you could want.
Right, and I do think there is a world though where JSN kind of takes off a little bit this year and
Hmm.
really helps his position in the future moving forward. But right now, I'm really hesitant there. Give me Drake London. He's still young and more proven so far.
The only reason if I'll take the JSN side is if I'm rebuilding. If I need that
Mhm.
first and I know that there's a chance it could be an early first, then all right, I'll take that deal. But if I'm competing, same. I'm sticking with London here.
Which is important context, right? Like that's
Mhm.
important context in the dynasty world.
Oh, yeah.
I think a lot of people that only do redraft don't realize that in dynasty there comes a point where halfway through the year, well, my team's not real good, and you start rebuilding immediately. And, in a rebuild world, I get it. The
Mhm.
JSN side, it makes sense.
Yeah, completely agree. All right, let's go on to our next one, coach, and we've got JJ McCarthy for a 2025 third for Michael Penix. Now, this is a trade I made. So,
Hmm.
this is in what I would call our biggest league, our home league, whatever you want to call it. I drafted Penix, I think at the 208, maybe the 206, something like that. I traded for a second round pick. And I don't really need Penix. So I like McCarthy. I like the value of going up to McCarthy because he's going to be an immediate player. There's a world where Kirk plays for another couple years there in Atlanta. So I took the McCarthy side. I also have Justin Jefferson. So if he does develop, there's a stack, even though I don't really like stacks. But what are your thoughts, coach?
Yeah, I understand both sides of this because I think Michael Penix, his preseason performance was really impressive, and I thought it was interesting that they held him out of preseason games down the stretch. Like that tells you they've got some big plans for him moving forward. But you're right, Kirk Cousins could play well and be the quarterback for 2 or 3 more years in Atlanta. I sort of think it's a wash, but you got a third with that, so which I think is extra. We love
And
that. We'll talk about that later.
I was about to say more on that later. We like to
Uh-huh.
talk about thirds here. All right, let's move on to our next one, which this is actually a trade that Coach made. Same league, I believe. I just know I'm a part of this league. It's a 12-team superflex, half PPR. And Coach, you secured James Conner and a 25 third for Jahan Dotson and a 25 second.
Yeah, Connor is. I don't know if you saw the coach just the other day called him the bell cow of that offense.
Mm-hmm.
And just to be honest, this is a trade where I'm trying to go win. Like I don't believe much in Jahan Dotson. I thought he's proven that he's at best average, and last night kind of showed that. I don't even know that he got a target. Um, maybe one, but
Let me
he
bet
didn't
that.
do anything. Like I'm trying to win. I think James Conner helps me win in a position of value that I needed, and I just and to me it was a no brainer. I also had 3 seconds, so moving a second is not the end of the world. I also think in this move, if something goes south for me early in my team, I'm like, oh man, we're not going to be very good. I can move James Conner to a different contender and get my second back if I have to.
Maybe this contender. That's all I'll say. Um, yeah, you're
Maybe.
you're you're right there. It looked like Jahan Dotson had one target. That's what
Mhm.
Sleeper says. So we'll roll with that. And if you're questioning what that one target led to, it would be a goose egg in fantasy points. So I'm totally with you. I don't really care about having Jahan in this situation. I want James Conner if I'm competing because I do think he's going to be a bell cow.
Mhm.
I mean,
As long as he stays healthy,
yeah,
he's helped somebody win.
and he might miss a few games because he's done that in his career where he's out for 2 or 3 games each year, maybe. But I'm fine with playing Connor. Like if he's my RB2, and I think on that team you have Bijan, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that's a dream scenario. Your team is young and competing. You can use him, and he's going to be helpful for you. And you even netted a pick back.
And I realize he's older, but I'm trying to win now. There's a world
Mhm.
where in Dynasty you have to say, okay, well, I'm trying to win this season.
Completely agree. Like at some
Mhm.
point, you got to stop worrying about building and being young and start saying, "Let's go win this thing."
Right. Absolutely.
So all right, well, let's hit our next trade here. This is a 10-team Dynasty Superflex, and we have Tyrone Tracy and a 2025 first for Bryce Young and a 25 fourth. Hmm.
Yeah, man. That's that's a hard one. I have said over and over again that I just don't see a world for Bryce Young right now that he's going to be super good. But now he's still a starting second year quarterback on granted a roster that's not very good at the moment, but possibly getting better. I can't really buy the Bryce Young thing right now. I'd rather have a 25 first. Like to me, I would consider a 25 first for Bryce Young alone. So getting Tracy with it. maybe for
Yeah,
some.
I think Tracy for the fourth. Like, I'll do that all day. I know you and I were both Tracy believers going into the draft. We both really liked the landing spot. He's someone we've targeted in our drafts. He was basically an auto pick for me in the third round. I drafted him multiple times at the 312, where I would just trade for that pick and then go draft Tracy. The injury in the preseason, not fun, but he looks to be okay. He looks like he's going to be the two, and there's a real shot where he competes and can kind of take that job from Singletary. I believe that's in the
Uh,
realm of possibilities.
well, in the last preseason game too, I know it's preseason, but Bryce Young looked improved.
Hmm.
So if Bryce Young can take the step and become just a middle of the pack kind of quarterback, then that's definitely worth it. Young quarterbacks they always cost a lot. That's how it works in Dynasty. So
Yeah, and I
yeah.
think we've kind of disagreed on Bryce Young, where I've kind of been trying to give him a second chance this season. I
Hmm.
know you've spoke a lot about his flaws. You went to training camp. You were able to watch him throw the ball a little bit around there, but I think the offense is at a minimum significantly better than it was last year. There's, I just think it's better. I think Bryce will play better. It's year two of him in the league. I
Hmm.
think, I think their head coach is good. I think he can coach. Deontay Johnson is immediately the best wide receiver they've had. So there's a world where he's better. How good will he be? To be determined.
Yeah, I mean, are the Panthers going to be a little better? Probably, but only a little. I mean, this is still not a team that's going to win more than they lose. I mean, it's one of those things where you go watch them at training camp, you think there's no way this is the team that has a winning record in the NFL this season. So, yeah, hope it'll be better. Let's hope. My son's a big Panther fan. We're hoping it's a little better.
We got to hope for him. All right, let's go on to our next trade here, Coach. We have got Fantasy Dads. Shout out to Fantasy Dads for sending us this one. Um, 12-team Dynasty Superflex PPR, and it's a tight end premium league. So we have Gerald Everett and Garrett Wilson for Khalil Herbert and Sam Laporta. A couple
Well, I
big
think
name
you
players.
first eliminate to me, you almost got to eliminate the Everett and Herbert thing. Although I think Herbert's going to get some touches in Chicago. Everett may get a few targets here and there. It's more of Wilson for Laporta. Give me Garrett Wilson. Um, in a tight end premium league, if I need a tight end, I'm good with the Laporta thing, but I'm just a big Garrett Wilson fan.
Hmm.
So give me Garrett Wilson.
I think the tight end premium here is what makes me hesitate a little bit. If you're moving Garrett Wilson for Sam Laporta, that just makes me think you've got to have a big name wide receiver, right? Like
You got to.
you got to have some sort of name in your wide receiver room that makes you say, okay, I can afford this. So that's kind of how I'm going to operate under this trade. But I just have a hard time moving Wilson for Laporta. But I think I'm okay with Laporta if my wide receiver room is not shook by this. If I can weather the storm, then that's enough for me.
Yeah. Well, if your wide receiver room is that good, then you're probably contending for sure. So,
Yeah, and you probably need Laporta for a reason. Like
but
you
Garrett
get rid
Wilson,
of.
I think Garrett Wilson's getting ready to boom with Aaron Rodgers. If Aaron Rodgers can stay healthy and there's someone that can throw him the football, I think he's getting ready to have a heck of a year. So give me Garrett Wilson.
All right, let's throw another one up here. So shout out to Man Disco here. So if you're not following Big Draft Energy, go give him a follow. He's one of the nicest people I've ever met. Anyways, this is a 14 team Dynasty Superflex. I'm actually in this league. Um, and there is no tight end premium. So I thought this was an interesting trade. Disco here, as he goes by, has a pretty good team. He's competing, going for the championship. So we've got Jake Ferguson for Hunter Henry, Jaleel McLaughlin, and a 2025 first.
Whew, that is a big pay for Ferguson. And
Hmm.
I'm Ferguson's top supporter for the last year, really. And I think he's going to have an even better year this year. If you're a contender in Dynasty, that's the world. If that puts you over the top, then it's absolutely worth it. If you're the other guy and you're rebuilding, you think you're a middle of the pack or below team, you take the first and you love every second of it. So I see both sides of this, but gosh, that's a big payout.
Yeah, like I said, I'm in this league. He's got a pretty good team. It's like you said, it's a little more than I want to give for Ferguson, and
Mhm.
I understand that it's not exactly the biggest pieces that you're giving on top of the first, but the 25 first alone kind of feels like ooh, do I want to give that up for Ferguson? Um, and I think I would if I was competing in the right
Mhm.
spot. If I know I need those points, but the fact that this league isn't a tight end premium, it just makes me favor that pick because we don't know. It's week one, everyone's teams. You're still trying to figure out who's good.
And we don't know the McLaughlin value either just yet. Like,
Hmm.
there's a chance where he's relevant at some point this season too. So
Yeah,
yeah, I'll take McLaughlin in a first for Ferguson.
and with McLaughlin too, you bring up a good point of what if that backfield kind of turns into the Steelers where you have Najee and you have Warren, but in Denver you're going to have Javante and McLaughlin. Like, can the two of them be a two-headed monster? And I think there's a chance. Yeah,
Yeah, maybe. Absolutely, maybe.
and
But now
Sean.
Ferguson's gonna be dang good. I'm telling you, he's gonna be good. He's gonna catch more touchdowns than he caught a year ago.
Yeah, I think he's going to be very good as well. And I'll end it with this: is Sean Payton's used two running backs a lot in his history, so that
He
that wouldn't
absolutely
surprise
has.
me.
Yeah. Hmm.
All right, well, let's get into our next one here. We have Jonathan Brooks in a 2025 first for Jonathan Taylor. Oof.
Yeah. Woo,
Oof.
man. You
Um,
you got to be a Jonathan Brooks fan or a Panther fan or something there. Like, I Jonathan Taylor is proven. Give me Jonathan Taylor. That being said, I do not know Brooks when it comes to like what's going on with his injury stuff. Like, he's he's on the pup. Like, he's gonna be out for a while. Um, yeah, he's walk. I don't know what's the deal. Is it? I mean, my son got his autograph at training camp. He was walking around perfectly fine. I don't really understand the full extent of the injury. First round pick though, the dude's gonna play when he gets back and he gets healthy. He's gonna be playing. Will that be this year? Will that be week 8? Does it matter? We're projecting down the road. Um, and a 25 first. I mean, that's a lot.
it is a lot. And I think again the context of the team matters here. We don't have league specific information for this one, but we do know that if I'm competing, I want Jonathan Taylor. So
Mhm,
if I know that I have a chance to win it, I'm not making this trade because Brooks is out for I don't know how long, and
mhm,
we both think that if he is going to be good, it's probably going to be a second half kind of thing for him this year. And I would rather have Jonathan Taylor for the full season. Obviously injuries happen, but I don't really want to kick that can unless my RB room is something insane where I
mhm,
can afford to make this move. I'm not doing it. If I'm rebuilding and I have Jonathan Taylor on my team, this is a great example of how we get out of the trade. Like
mhm,
how we move on to rebuild our team and we take the 25 first because we don't know what it is yet. And
mhm.
we add a young running back who we know is going to play probably much better next year than he will this year.
Right, absolutely, and if you're rebuilding, it makes complete sense. Like, you got a guy, first round pick, he's going to play over the next few years. He's gonna play, and then you got a 25 first to come with it. So you could essentially you got 2 starters for your roster moving into next season, and you got rid of 1 starter, and you're gonna probably have 2 starters coming in to help your team next season and beyond.
Yeah, I completely
Yeah.
agree.
Mhm.
So, well, before we move on to our mediator code coach, is there any players out there before we head into tomorrow's games? Anybody you're out there hoping you can get a trade done last minute?
I saw Matt's talking about was just got on here talking about let's add Ryan Tannehill. Like, he's already added him this morning, so
I have.
Matt's all over that one.
I, hey, everyone, if Tannehill is out there on your waivers and you're in some sort of super flex, I would just go ahead and add him if he's open. I added him in 2 leagues, not because I believe in him, but because I know this that if a quarterback signs and they start playing somewhere and they're starting, that is value.
Mhm,
It's value added. So, worst case, you just drop him if nothing happens. But if he signs to Green Bay and maybe he gets a starting job, that's something to to possibly move. I mean, think of how often last year we had teams that were losing quarterbacks, or you saw trades with Josh Dobbs. Like, if you're telling me you can go pick up Ryan Tannehill right now and then move him at any point in time in the season for a third, and you never have to deal with him again, is that something you would do?
Oh, I absolutely. I'm doing
Yeah,
that.
I
Um,
agree. Or if you can get a second, like if he's playing well, like whatever you can get, if he's on your waivers for free right now, I'm just gonna try it.
yeah, and just hang on to it. And it's not going to hurt anything. Um, the T Higgins thing in Cincinnati is frustrating to me. So
Mm,
this is this might be an ad. Go see if I can get a hold of Iosivas and try to add him to my roster if possible. Because there's a world where this guy becomes fantasy relevant over the next few weeks, and he's also young, 23, 24, somewhere in there. So he could help down the road. Been lots of positive reviews about him coming out of
yeah,
camp, and he's getting ready to get a shot tomorrow.
and you're hitting the nail on the head too. I mean, whether it's by talent or situation, he's probably gonna have some opportunity. Just because if Higgins is out, and then we've got the Chase contract issues, somebody's got to catch the ball. Somebody does.
Absolutely,
So,
yeah.
it's worth picking up and just seeing what happens. I mean, we're not saying he's going to win you the league. We're not saying you're going to trade him for a first this time next year, but we just don't know. We need to figure out. And same thing goes for Burton. I mean, it's been a lot of negative news about Burton this week.
Mm.
And
Yeah, really scary stuff.
mhm,
Ultimately, yeah, if you're a Burton owner, like,
mhm.
ugh,
And I liked Burton pre-draft. I have him over here on my draft board as one of my top players that I wrote down. So I really wanted to see what he would do, where he would go pre-draft. Obviously, not the best situation, but again, let's see if he steps up to the plate. I don't know if he will. We'll see. I mean, there was talks he was going to be a healthy scratch.
why do you think, like, if you go add Iosivas, if I add Iosivas somehow, some way between now and tomorrow, and he has a good 2 games or so before Chase and Higgins are both back, then there's going to be world down the road where someone else makes a trade for him and he becomes a relevant player 2 years from now for someone, like
Hmm.
because he performed well in 2 games. Like that's a guy you grab and you hang on to and see what happens.
So it almost kind of sounds like, can someone step up and be Tyler Boyd?
Absolutely.
I
Yeah. And
mean,
he's going to have the chance to be Tyler Boyd anyway, right? He's going to be
exactly.
the 3 with an elite quarterback. Like, yeah, I mean, there's relevance there for
Yeah.
sure,
Let's
or
take the
potential
shot.
for it anyway.
Yeah. Any other players out there, coach, that you're thinking about? I mean, the waivers, I know we kind of discussed earlier in the week. Not much has
Hmm.
changed since we've only had 2 games played. Um, Emmanuel Wilson was someone we recommended. He ended the game with just under 6 points. But he looked okay. I mean, he looked fine. Spelling
Yeah.
Jacobs kind of had a slow start, but Emmanuel Wilson, if he's out there, I'd still pick him up. Just someone to have as a handcuff. You just don't know what can happen.
Yeah. If you're, kind of watching this and you're a big dynasty person, those rosters are huge, right? And those taxis should be full. Like those are things that there are not a lot of options out there on the waivers lots of times. So if someone hits the waiver wire, you scoop them up and you stash them every chance you can. Like you got to keep your head on a swivel. You got to stay
Yeah.
ready for any little ad, any that's possible.
All right. Well, you said stay ready. So let's just go ahead and transition into our mediators code. These are our dynasty tips and tricks. It's the code we live by for our leagues. It's how we manage our teams. So please be sure to comment below if you have other strategies you use or what you think about ours. And we'll go ahead and get started. And I'm going to say the first one here, Coach. It's stay fluid. I mean, you said it all right there with what you were saying, and something we try to do is stay fluid with our team. You may pick up a player on waivers like Ryan Tannehill, and he may not get signed. Everyone could say he's not a good quarterback. You got to be ready to drop him and move on. And it's the same thing with a bigger name player. If you trade for someone and it doesn't go your way, you need to start thinking about, well, how can I solve my problem? Who can I go get now? Is there somebody on the waivers? Is there someone I can trade for? Do I need to start benching a big name player? Like maybe Devonte Adams is having an awful year to start the season. I don't know, just using a name. And you just keep forcing him into your lineup. and you've got someone like one of these Bengals wide receivers who's young with a bunch of opportunity and maybe they're playing well. You got to be ready to make whatever move you need to do to get fantasy points in your lineup. And I
Yeah.
think to that point is staying fluid.
Yeah, and I really think too, you if a guy that's on your bench has a couple of really good games, you got to kind of monitor, am I going to use this guy moving forward in the next couple of years? What's his stock going to look like 2 years from now? And if I don't love it, then maybe I got to capitalize on a good game and move him then. Like you got to be ready to try anything at any moment. It's very rare where just sitting still pays off in the dynasty world. Like you got to be looking to make moves. That could be trading up, trading down, whatever you got to do constantly to stay ready to to be a contender now or contender 2 years, 3 years from now.
Yeah, and a good example of what you're saying is Isaiah Likely. I mean, everyone's talking about him right now. How good is he? Do you put him in your lineup? If you had
Yep.
him in your lineup this week, you feel real good. If he
Mm,
was on your bench, you feel real bad. So, do you start him next week? I don't know. It depends on your team. But if he does it again, do you start him the week after? Well, now we start thinking, okay, yeah, it's likely's real. Like we need to be putting him in our lineups. Like he is a top dynasty tight end. And maybe he's not. Maybe next week he's bad. I don't know. We'll see. That's why I'm not making any rash decisions on Andrews or Likely here. But your point's taken of if I don't need Likely and I've got two other solid tight ends on my team, can I move Likely right now? Or if he's
absolutely.
good, can I move him again? Like move him later.
Yep. You have to be willing to capitalize right now.
Hmm.
If you're a likely guy, now's the time. Now, either you're playing him and you believe in him, or you're moving him. I mean, because you don't need him. I mean, one of those two things.
Yep. All right, Coach, kick us off with something that you keep in mind when you're managing one of your teams.
Well, the number one fantasy code for me, which I will admit sometimes I worry about it too much, but you buy the third round pick. Like always buy the third round pick. Like third round picks in Dynasty for me are such a big deal. Like I do think it's something over the course of the last year and a half. I've really got Matt even to come around on a little bit. Um, but if I'm making a trade and I think I might do the trade. I think I might do the trade. I'm going to see if the other guy's going to give me a third first. If he will, then I'm taking it all day long. If I can use that to draft players. Now I take a lot of pride in trying to find the sleeper in the third round that's going to help me win. Now it's something I've had a lot of success with. There are
Mhm.
a lot of different ways to use the third. Like the third can be used to get secure a future trade. Like I'm trying to get a trade done to help me win. I just attach a third round pick to it just to make it look a little spicier, and I can have a higher chance of landing it coming back. So you always, always, always add that third round pick.
Yep, by the third, folks. So, and he makes fun of me here because he says I'm starting to follow in because I've been making a bunch of trades where I'm like, well, can I get a third back?
Mm-hmm.
And and it's kind of funny because how you ended it right there is normally how I've approached the third round pick. If I
Mm-hmm.
can get a trade deal done where I'm getting a player that I know I believe in and I think is going to be better than what everyone else is projecting, I will give you a third. I don't care because I want my player. I want to go win. So there's been plenty of times where we've had trades in our leagues, especially between the two of us, where I've just given you the third because I don't care. I want the player. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so it's something that I have started to think, okay, well, maybe I should be keeping some of these thirds to um, draft some players because at the draft time, I'm always like, man, there's some names in there. I want Tyrone Tracy, like I was saying earlier, but I don't have a third.
Mm-hmm.
So it is something I've kind of changed my process on, but it's kind of turned into I like trading for the future thirds because they're so cheap. They're so
Mm-hmm.
cheap. So if I can get rid of a vet and get a young guy and then add a 26 third or a 27 third, nobody's thinking about those right now. They don't care. And I want them because when the season comes around, I've got two or three thirds and I've got multiple leagues where I have that situation. And I can just take one of those thirds and send it for a vet that needed to start. Or I can save it and I can use it in the draft because we know the draft pick's value is only going to accrue. Every single year
Mhm,
we have a rookie draft. The picks increase in value every single day as we lead up to that draft. So if you want a 25 first right now and you're a tanking team, it's as cheap as it's going to be today.
mhm.
And then
Right.
next week it's going to be more expensive and so on and so forth. So you need to be looking in that and watching that for what do I do?
But there are so many people out there that could care less about their third that a lot of times they'll just, okay, whatever, we'll give you one, in a trade. And like, I have so many rosters that have been salvaged by the draft picks I've made in the third round that it's crazy.
Yeah,
Now,
let's go ahead and do it. But name some of these players that have been your thirds the last couple years because there are receipts, folks. I have them. I have been a part of these conversations. So name them off, coach.
Tank Dell's one, right? Like I was targeted him way before it ever happened. Like this was a guy I wanted to go get, and I was just sat there with my two, three, four thirds and took him. You got Puka Nakua. I mean, these are guys that in the third round you look around, and you go, "There's a receiver that was drafted in the fifth or sixth round that has very little competition. Like
And
I want that guy."
were you targeting Puka Nakua?
Absolutely, I wanted
Absolutely, he
Puka.
was
Like,
from the
yeah,
beginning, guys. From the beginning. And
yeah,
we
from
can
the
even go
draft.
back a year before that. You had names that you drafted Sam Howell with a third, I believe.
Hmm.
And,
Oh yeah, yeah,
is
yeah.
Sam Howell a superstar? No, but he's definitely worth more than that. And he's had more worth than that in his career. And I think you've even shipped him off a couple times.
Yeah, I have. I've moved him. Somehow had enough value last year that I almost won the league with Sam Howell. Like with a guy that I basically got for nothing. So I mean, this is something that I really believe in. Some of these dynasties have 4 rounds. Like I don't love the fours as much. There's not nearly as much value there. But I mean, I'll still take it. Like if a guy won't give me a third, then I'll ask for a fourth. I mean, it's all stuff you can use later on to help you win.
Yeah. And you got Brian Robinson in the third, too. That's another player.
Absolutely.
He's worth more than that
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. But
So,
you got to study on the thirds, and you got to stuff's got to fall your way. But it's all about where is the competition at.
mhm.
Like that's what I'm always looking at.
And you mentioned competition. Is that a factor that you are actively seeking out? So, for example, when you see a wide receiver that gets drafted, you want to know, okay, well, who's in front of them? What is the barrier to them being relevant? And that's led you to a name in Flournoy down in Dallas. You have
Yeah.
been preaching that name for a long time of opportunities there. Michael Gallup is gone.
Hmm.
They have Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks is, I'm guessing, 30. I don't know how old he is, but he's older. And he'll probably be okay for fantasy. But after that, you're moving to a new position. It's Ferguson, who's the best pass catcher.
Yeah. Like there's potential for Flournoy to be relevant. Like if that's the case, then I want that guy on my team. Puka, that was Puka for me. Like I knew, like I thought Puka was a good player. I didn't know he was this good. Right? Like, I'd
Pretty
be
good.
lying to you if I said that. But what I did know is that there was a potential for him to play and play early. And when that happens, and I think you're a pretty decent player, then I want that guy on my team. Like Luke McCaffrey would be another perfect third round pick guy that could be relevant this coming season, right? Because there's potential for him to play. He's a good athlete. There's potential for that guy to play. I wish I had more shares of him. I'm mad that I don't.
Yeah, you,
Um,
you got sniped several times in some drafts
but
for Luke McCaffrey.
those are the guys you got to look for. I mean,
Yeah,
that's how it works. Tank Dell, that's Tank Dell. Exactly. The dude was really fast at the combine. Then he gets drafted up by a team that, oh man, he's going to play. All of a sudden, there's just him and Nico last year. Then he got a chance to get on the field and produce. And now he's going to be fantasy relevant for the next 5 years.
yeah. I mean, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking for opportunities and who can make the most of them. And
Hmm.
you gotta sometimes make a rash decision of, I think that this player has played well, and I'm gonna go make that trade offer and go buy them, or I think they're not hitting the expectations that I had. Which
Hmm.
leads us into our next tip and trick here is know your team. You've got to know when you are adding a player or going after a player and your team is ready to compete or not ready to compete. And it's sometimes tough pill to swallow that, I'm not a competing team. And you're not helping yourself if you're finishing between you know, 8th and 5th in the league. Like, I understand
Yeah.
there's some things that can happen where you have a bad week. Like one year I got destroyed by Alvin Kamara on Christmas. Like there was
Mhm.
nothing I could do in my dynasty league where I was going against the manager who had that. And I had a very good team. But if I'm sneaking into the playoffs and I look at everyone's roster and I go, "Oh my god, there's no chance I win." Then you did it wrong. Like you need
Right.
to be moving that pick up to be as high as possible so you can get the most amount of value. Whether you keep the pick or you move the pick and add more assets, that's where you can start playing the game.
Mhm. That's what makes Dynasty fun to me, right? Like, okay, I realized, okay, I had some injuries. My team's not real good. This is not going to go well for me. So now I got to start rebuilding and retooling for the following year. How many picks can I get? That contender wants, is there a player on my team that's a little bit older? Like you got to make that call by the middle of the season. You have to if you want to get to where you want to be for the following year. That's a decision you got to make by about week 9 or 10.
Yeah, I totally agree. I
Hmm.
mean, if you're going further than that, then it's just too late. And
Yeah.
it kind of leads into another thing that we talk about a lot, which is windows. Like we're playing dynasties, so you're in theory this team is your team for all time until they
Hmm.
retire or whatever happens to them, they're on your team. So you've got to be able to step back and look and say, all right, my team is loaded with vets or it's loaded with youth, and do I need to make some sort of move to counteract the other? So if you've got a lot of youth that's good on your team, like if your team is full of Tank Dell, Puka Nakua, Bo Nix, like the guys that you like on one of your teams where you're just so young, do you need to go get a vet to help you win now, like James Conner?
Right.
Or is your team just, a little too young or a little too old and you just don't have the right fit? Do I need to start moving Devontae Adams? That's
Hmm.
things that we think about.
Yeah, always. You always got to be willing and ready to make that next move, which we said before. But you got to be honest about your team. Some people just think, look, you can't look at dynasty like you look at redraft. And you
Mhm.
can't say, well, I'm I'm going to hold this team because I just can't give up the chance of winning this year. Well, then you're going to lose you're going to lose next year too, and the year after that. So yeah,
Yeah, you can't be too late on this because if you're too late, then it's over. You're screwed.
right, absolutely.
So, hit us with another one, Coach. What's something that you really enjoy or you try to do when you're managing your teams and, um, you know, figuring out what you're going to do if you've made a move or if, you've picked up a player, drafted a player, traded for a pick, and it's kind of not really working out.
Yeah, well, trade pivoting is that's what I call it. Like if I make a trade, then in the back of my head, I've got, well, when this doesn't work out, or if I screwed this up, how can I fix it where it doesn't hurt me terribly? The James Conner trade we went over earlier is a perfect example. Like I added James Conner because I think he can help me win and my team win. But if we get in week 4 or 5 and there's some injuries somewhere and things just did not go good for my team, then I feel like I can take James Conner and I can give that guy that's a contender a call and I can move him and get my pick back. Now, those are things I think people forget about. They just make the move when you really have to be thinking, well, if this blows up in my face, how can I pivot and where it doesn't hurt me as terrible? I may have gave up a second, but now I can move him and at least get a third back. That way, it's a little less pain with the move that didn't work in my favor.
And let's put some context too in that trade because I know when you were trying to make this offer, we talked about it. And you did something that I think is really, really smart. I know you're a competing team in that league. There's probably four of us that I'd say are the true playoff contenders, and you're one of those teams. And you took your second that you believe to be a late second. I mean, in
Hmm.
theory, it projects to be late because you should be competing. You'll be in the playoffs, and you added that third coming back to you. Well, that third is from a team we both think there's a world where it's an early third. So
Hmm.
that's one way to kind of negate the loss for you right there too.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, if it works out right, then I'm just moving back 4 or 5 picks, right, to
Hmm.
make it happen ultimately. So you got to always got to evaluate which pick you're giving up. Like, in your second, it was in Dynasty, you'll have all kinds of those rounds to pick from and all kinds of those picks. Like I had 3 seconds. So I tried to say, well, I'm gonna take the one that's the worst second round pick and I'm gonna move it, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
yeah, I mean that's something people have to pay more attention to for sure.
And that kind of leads into something that I like to say a lot is I try to never move my first. You know,
Hmm.
it's like you said, knowing your team. How do we pivot out of trades? Well, moving your first is a big commitment. Some leagues have where you have to make your payment for that year. Um, if you're in a money league, and that's a big commitment of do I want to win? Will I win? So I'll go ahead and pay my buy-in. And it's also something of, well, if this trade blows up in my face, I've lost my ability to recover from it because I've traded my first. So I always try to keep my first because it's the only thing that I know its value. So if my team is doing bad and life's not going well, we've already said you need to have the mindset of avoiding being in the middle of the draft order. So I'm going to try and push that thing towards the 101. So that's going to be a good pick. But if you've
Yeah.
moved it, you're kind of stuck in, well, now what do I do?
Yeah, boy, when you move it first and you don't win the league, that's I mean, that's a punch in the gut. I mean, that's a
Mhm.
major problem moving forward. Now if you move it first and you win the league, then kudos to you. It was a great move. But that's you're a hundred. I mean, you're 100% accurate on that. Like you want to try to hang on to it if at all possible.
Yep. So, why don't you hit us with one more, coach? Kind of tell us. This might be one of your favorite ones. I feel coming here. So,
Yeah, like you got to use your taxi, man. Like you get that's how what you do with all those thirds that you went and got because you like to buy the third. Or wait, that's me. Um, You stash all those dudes on your taxi and you just hold them there. Like there's so many teams I see in my leagues that aren't taking advantage of their taxi. And in Dynasty, that is super important. You just send them down there. Like it's not hurting you a bit. Um, if they play good eventually, then awesome. If not, then next year you just replace them with more thirds on your taxi. Like it's not the end of the world, but you have to take advantage of that to make your roster as deep and as, have as many options as possible. And if you're not, then you're doing it wrong.
yeah, it's free money, is what it is. And if there's a rookie that's sitting out there on waivers, just go pick him up. Just put
Yeah.
them on your taxi. Like it doesn't cost you anything. So you should be doing it because just as much as you've been putting Flournoy up there, and you've been really high on his opportunity in his situation. There's several leagues where depending on your taxi settings, I've gone and picked up Tolbert and thrown him on my taxi just
Right,
because
yeah,
he's
yeah.
out there. Like I don't know, it might hit. I know it hasn't been great the start of his career, but he's still young. If you have the opportunity to put him on your taxi, I mean, I did this last year, but
Yeah.
it's just a name. Like you want to take the opportunity and just see if it hits.
Like, I've been saying there's opportunity for people like Flournoy and Lobby and Vegas. Like, but where are those guys at? They're sitting on my taxi. Like, I'm not saying they're gonna win me the league right now, but what if they do play really good? Then they're sitting down there and I've got them,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
that's the thing. If they don't, then, oh, well, I haven't lost anything.
yeah, and it's kind of like we were saying earlier is, we went into last season in the league that we've been talking about, our most competitive one, and down there on your taxi was Tank Dell and Puka Nakua.
Mm,
Can you
right.
imagine looking at that today?
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's crazy, but it's really just an example of taking advantage of the taxi. I mean, that's really it. And being fluid and taking advantage of that opportunity.
Yeah, know your league settings. So if you've got a
Yeah.
taxi, fill those spots. If it's a tight end premium, be thinking about, is there a tight end out there I can take a shot on, like Parkinson, or you know Noah Fant is another name. Like, I don't know what his opportunity is going to be out there, but it's someone that I might just want to have. So, there's dart throws that you can have, and you can take those rookies you draft and throw them on your taxi.
Yep, absolutely.
So, all right, coach. Well, we're kind of hitting the end of the show here. Why don't you let us know? Do you have any players you're looking forward to seeing this weekend? Any games you're specifically ready to watch?
Man, I'm ready to watch the Bears and Caleb Williams. What is he? Like, I don't know. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and say I think he's gonna be amazing. I've been a Bears fan for 43 years. We've never had a quarterback that can play. So I'm definitely pumping the brakes on that and waiting to see what happens. man, Bo Nix. I've been a big Bo Nix supporter and believer, and I think he's going to be good. And we'll see. Like he still has to prove it, and there's a lot of things can happen. We'll see. What about you?
I mean, I'm ready to watch my boy Jaden Daniels. We're
Hmm.
coming. It's
Yeah, yeah.
it's an arrival. That's all I'm gonna say. So I'm excited to see him go out there, see what we can do. I'm just hoping for improvement because, like you said, I'm a lifelong Washington fan, and it's been quarterback turmoil my entire life. Like I
Yeah.
haven't known a good quarterback other than Kirk
Hmm.
Cousins. I will defend him.
Hmm.
Um, and on the other side of the ball in the same game, I'm ready to see Bucky Irving. That's someone I've been talking about a lot. I'm definitely higher on him than you are, and I just want to see what he can do. See what Rashad White does, and if he gets the opportunity.
Yeah, and the Bears are playing the Titans, which there's a lot of intrigue there for me when it comes to the Titans roster and who are the relevant players for the Titans. I don't know, but there's going to be a couple guys by week 7 or 8 that are going to be relevant there, and there's it could be almost anybody. I don't know. I'm interested to see what's going on in their backfield. How does Will Levis play? I hope he throws the ball to the Bears 3 or 4 times. But I don't know. Who are the receivers there? Is Burks relevant? Like there's a whole lot of things to monitor there and potential that could help a team down the road.
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on, and just opportunities everywhere. Don't know who's going to hit on them, but we did see this week where it looks like the Pollard Tajay Spears split is going to be close to 50-50. At least that's what
Hmm.
I've read. And if that's true, then I don't know. Anything could happen. Let's say Tajay Spear comes out and he looks good, then that might be his job. Now they did pay Pollard, so that's where you follow the money and see if he's gonna be the hot
Hmm.
hand that they kind of force. But it's interesting. And you mentioned the wide
Yeah.
receivers of Burks, and we've got Ridley and we've got D Hop out there. We know what they are. They're older
Hmm.
vets. Is there a young guy that's going to step in, especially if they miss time? Because it sounds like you know, D Hop, I don't really know what his availability is going to be all season. I don't know if this is going to plague him with his injuries, but if it does, then is there a world where, you know, maybe someone else can step up and be a playmaker? Because we've got a deep,
Jackson.
there it is. Jaquan Jackson. There it is. I
Yeah.
knew it was coming. That's what I was about to say. There's a
Yeah.
deep, deep dive in there. And it's
Hmm.
Jaquan Jackson. That's someone that you liked pre draft.
Yeah, dude's really fast. There's opportunity there. Like he should be on the bottom of somebody's taxi somewhere. I
There
don't
you
know if
go.
he's anything or not, but I want to find out. You know.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. So, go add Jackson, throw him to the taxi, and let's see what happens because we don't know. We'll
Yeah, he
figure
may
out.
not play any. He may catch 5 balls. I don't know, but I know that some of the other guys aren't very good. Hopkins is old. Burks has proven he can't play. Like, uh,
Yeah. Burks is one where it's just a little scary. I don't know. I have one trade where I got Burks as a throw in, and I have no idea what to make of it. It just thought I'd give it a shot.
so it was worth a shot.
Yeah.
And
So
Will Levis relevant. We'll see.
yeah, yeah, we're gonna figure out a lot to learn this weekend. We're looking forward to it. Tune in next week. We're going to have another episode where we're going to kind of review the week, kind of walk through what we saw, the dynasty implications of that. If you have a trade, send it to us. Let us know. Or if you got a question or a specific player, add us over on X at the FF Mediators. You'll
Hmm.
see us on there. Be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube as well. It's pinned in our profile. It'll be uploaded to more likely later this weekend, possibly on Monday. But we'll get everything up there and be sure to be following along and let us know if you have any thoughts. Any final remarks, Coach?
No, just go follow us. We love to hear from you. Any thoughts or questions or anything we can help you with trade wise, or if you just kind of want to know what we think, feel free to shoot us a message and just don't hesitate to ask. We can help at all.
Yeah, I mean, and again, shout out to the Face Off Sports Network here. We're proud to be an affiliate of theirs and looking forward to continue to produce dynasty content for fantasy football going forward. And be
Mhm.
sure to let us know your thoughts. So we appreciate everyone's time. And until next time, we'll catch you then.